I started working in crowdsourcing back in about 2009. What I now look back and see is the first instance of what you might call online work, where technology and computing is just mediating this relationship between people who want to get stuff done and people who are able to do it, which we now see through applications like Uber, which does the same thing with taxis. The idea behind Soylent originally was to say, well, what would it be like to have the kinds of computing applications that you and I use every day infused with the intelligence of the crowd? We started with basically the white lab rat of computer applications, which was the word processor. And so what we did was create a plugin for Microsoft Word. That plugin was called Soylent. The simplest thing it could do is just become a copy editor, where you could sort of select some of your text and the crowd would come in and start suggesting fixes for it. So grammatical errors or lack of clarity. In fact, we found problems with the paper that we wrote about Soylent using Soylent. If you're writing on a deadline, what we end up doing is allowing the crowd to sort of come in and offer a bunch of opportunities to shorten your text. And rather than just shortening it, we get a bunch of different alternatives and then give you a slider. And as you drag your slider, your text rewrites itself to become shorter or longer, anywhere in between. And what I think has happened over the last couple years when I read the tea leaves is that this marketplace that started out with just micro tasks, where it's going to go is it's pushing toward a future where computation really is mediating that future of work. You know, in the future, I may not work just for Google, right? I might work for Google for 5 hours on Monday, go work for Apple for a bit on Tuesday, go jump around, be like a consultant for Facebook on Thursday and Friday, all through these digital marketplaces, right? I think that's where this is really going to go. We've seen a lot that we can do with, in some sense, generic crowds. And what my group has been thinking about recently a lot is what happens when you stop saying, oh, what can anyone do? And you start asking, what happens if I could draw on demand a video producer, a software engineer, an artist, an opera singer, just when I need them, and 10 minutes later have a team and guide them through the kinds of things they're trying to do, like to build these sort of flash teams that never before existed. That's the direction I think it's going. To a certain extent, that future is coming regardless of what we do. And we can either let industrial interests and financial interests and corporate interests sort of guide it toward whatever it's going to be, or we can take the bull by the horns and try to paint a future that we think will be empowering to both workers and requesters and so on. Imagine a world in which the computing systems and the applications that you use are not only far smarter than they are today, but as smart as you and I are. And this is not a world that we have to wait 100 years for artificial intelligence to create, but something that you could use tomorrow.
Find out more in this month's Communications of the ACM.